one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now, and I think it's in the age of cell phone post-COVID, is the disciplinary actions of the kids in the schools and the inability to maintain quality Tier 1 instruction because of those interruptions. I've become probably the most unpopular board member because I think people think I'm really harsh on this situation, and I want to be 100% clear. I do not think suspensions is the way. I do not think that expelling kids is the answer. That's absolutely the worst thing that we can possibly do. I think Nicole brought a good point at another hearing or just in conversations that the district has done a better job at not giving punitive measures to kids so quickly. But having said that, with the social emotional issues and the poverty issues, the cell phone issues that we do have in our schools right now, we talk about it and it doesn't happen. We need more counselors. We need more behavioral interventionists. We need people in our schools that can help with this kind of epidemic and this problem. It's not the kids, it's what they're going through in their lives, and we need people in the schools and on the ground doing those things. So I'm pretty passionate about getting more bodies. I come from an interesting perspective because I'm the only board member, to my knowledge, that has actually been in a school system. I was taught for 2 years in the last 4 years, and I've seen where this disruption, we're trying so hard to have this literacy, raise this literacy rate, and yet we're facing all these challenges. 2 minutes, right? We're facing all these challenges where we don't have, teachers are leaving in droves. They're just, the school system within itself is taking on a lot, and we need more people to be able to help with that. All right, my second thing is that in order to build better school culture, I think that we talked about athletics, arts, band. We need to I've asked my kids and all of their friends, what's the one thing that you guys would like to see? They feel disengaged, they don't feel like they're a part of something. And if we can put more energy into getting these kids involved in not just athletics, but band, arts, more clubs, more science-based clubs outside of school, if we can do those things, I think we'll have better engagement within the community as a whole. People, I could have just said that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sensley, for that. All right, we will move down to the end of our road to Ms. Hull.
All right, so my top 3 priorities, and I'll try to break them down. My first one will be closing the achievement gap. And that looks like between the races, that looks like between exceptional students to gen ed students, that looks like our gen ed population to our population of students who are in AP classes and gifted classes. I want us to really look at what the achievement gap is, the different ways that it is broken, the little gaps and places that are in those things, and then we expel resources to address those things. I think those also look like putting aside resources for parents to be able to navigate our educational system. When we really think about the big systems that families have to navigate in this world, we think about the punitive systems, right? We think about jail, we think about those kind of things, but our educational system is a huge system, and to be able to navigate that competently and effectively, I think would be best practice for us if we want our parents to partner with us. And so making sure they know how to navigate disciplinary situations, making sure they know how to navigate special education, making sure they know how to navigate things like applying for colleges, signing up for tests, all of those different things. And the efforts, I see the efforts in our district that have been put forth already, so I would like money allocated to continue those things. My second big thing would be us focusing on discipline. Discipline has been a problem. I would like to see resources allocated to making sure that we have things like cultural competency training for individuals dealing with our children and making those decisions, more trauma-informed decision-making, to make sure they're speaking to some of the unique traumas that our families are facing, and us to really look at what are we doing in terms of spending money for restorative practices. That has been a buzzword that has had a lot of different meaning but what are we doing to really support our vision for keeping our schools safe, keeping our families safe, but also making sure there's not a disparity in discipline. And then my last point I want to focus on is teacher retention. I know we have a lot of amazing children, we have a lot of amazing teachers, and teachers that want to be able to teach, but making sure that we're doing things to keep our teachers here, not just in terms of it being a competitive salary. That is important. I want to make sure that I say that is important, but also just making sure that they also have more than just a financial stake or feeling like they have a financial stake in our educational system, our school system. I want them to be fully supported. I want them to feel like there's a true educational stake in the life of a child long term. I remember my first grade teacher. She traveled with me. We still are in contact. I want them to be able to feel those types of connections with our students, and I think it's important to make sure that they feel like they're a part of the community and also supported. So in ways that we can help in that way, I would like that to happen. Those are my big things.
Thank you, Ms. Hull. Can I ask to return to Ms. Hensley really quickly? Do you have in mind a rank for your priorities?
Yeah, my first priority would be, you mean out of those three? The top one, which is the literacy issue. It's like with the students, my second priority would probably be quality, number three, quality teacher retention, like quality instruction, and then third, engagement. I hate to rank them, but okay.
They asked us to do that, so just you know, it's a practice. All right, Ms. Hull, did you have your priorities ranked?
Yes. Number one, a closing achievement gap. Number two, looking at our disciplinary practices. And number three would be teacher retention.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, now we're going to keep it moving. Ms. Butts.
Okay, so my first one would be focus more on the fine arts department with the student morale, try to get the students more involved in being in the bands, the different social clubs, because as we can see, if we look at Clark Central and Cedar Shaw's, our numbers have decreased tremendously. My second focus would be more on literacy, getting the tools that we need for our students, put more money there. So if it's that we can add additional staff, because our kids really are behind. I know we're not the only district, but I would like to see more on the literacy piece. And the third is the discipline. I know we have a huge issue with our discipline in our schools, and I would like us to see what can we do to have a safe environment, a safe culture for our students. I don't know if, like, I agree with Ms. Hull with training our teachers and our resource officers on trauma-informed.
And do you have a ranking for these priorities?
Yes, so fine arts department is number one. Number two, focus more on literacy, and the third will be discipline.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. I'm glad I went to that conference. I know my number three because they told me. Okay. So the first thing is, of course, safety of our students and our faculty. That's my number one priority that I think we should invest in, and that doesn't mean go out and turn our schools into prisons. It means let's understand what safety is and what does it take for people to feel safe and welcome so that they can actually learn and do their work in teaching as well. So safety is the number one for me. Number two is student success. I was going to say achievement, but we've had that achievement gap for the whole 12 years I've been on this board. We have seen a myriad of programs that have been brought forward to us, and we continue to do things that exacerbate that, in my opinion. And so I would really like for us to understand what student success really means so that we can all get on the same page in understanding that. The third thing is sustainable vision. And so if I didn't learn anything else, my big takeaway from the conference for COSBA this year was that school systems do well when boards are focused, laser focused on student success, and when board as well. So there's something to be said when the entire vision of the district can be articulated by not only our schools, but our communities, our stakeholders, our lawmakers. If we are all going for the same vision, then we can probably sustain some of our turnover better. We can probably sustain some of our losses better. We will definitely lose some excellent teachers because as soon as they get excellent, they leave. And so those are the three main things. So if we have safety of the students and our faculty and all of our employees, student achievement and success, and then a sustainable vision that we're all working toward every single day. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Dr. Yeager.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So I've been reading this book that we've been supposed to be reading for March, and yes, I get the whole thing that we need to focus on the student achievement. I really do. I'm trying to figure out even what that looks like, given what we've been doing versus what we need to do. So I'd like to keep having that conversation and focusing on how do we know how our students are doing? I mean, we have tests all the time. I hear from the parents that kids are over-test, but we don't really ever look at that data. We don't look at it through the semester or through the year or, Linda mentioned the safe and trusting environment at the schools. How do we make sure everybody feels like they're safe there in a not just violence way, but in a inclusive and welcoming way? So that's a guardrail. We need to make sure that's there. The other guardrail for me is equity and making sure that we don't have really different opportunities for our kids across town. And I think we still have a lot of work to do on that. Some of our elementary schools are significantly more welcoming and more successful, I think, than others. And I also wonder about our 2 high schools and how equitable they are in terms of the experiences of our kids. So again, that's a guardrail. Those 2 things, safe and trusting environment and equitable access, those are our really key objectives in our strategic plan, and I think those are our guardrails. So how do we, what are the priorities for the budget? So my number 1 priority, if I look at these objectives, for me is increasing access and success with rigorous and relevant learning experiences. That's my top priority. We need to give the kids more chances to get excited about what they're learning. And so I, of course, think about literacy, and I'm really proud of all of the great programs that I'm seeing coming up, getting kids excited about reading. That's first and foremost. They've got to be able to read if they want to learn other stuff. But also using that reading not to just be like, okay, you have to read this thing, but the reading is fun. Make sure we're giving them the books to read that they enjoy reading. But then also, as Heidi mentioned, field trips, music and arts, the things that give kids joy and make them want to go to school and make them want to learn. Field trips for me were huge. Getting kids outside, getting them into the beach or the ocean or the lakes or the rivers or the woods. I mean, and I know I'm a scientist, so that's what got me excited. But I think a lot of kids are scientists when they're in elementary school. Everybody's a natural scientist when they're in elementary school. And so can we cultivate that? Can we cultivate it around gardening or agriculture? Can we cultivate it around the parks that we have? And then the music and arts, relevant STEM, all of those things that get kids excited about learning. And then for the older kids, I really think we want to stay focused on this new economy. And I know we've started this sustainability initiative and keeping that group very focused on the kids, like how is all of this benefiting the kids? And I'm really proud of the leadership of that committee so far has really stayed very focused on making sure that what we do to make ourselves more sustainable and more up to date in the new energy economy also includes training our kids to deal with that new economy because they're the ones that are going to have all those jobs when they get out of here. So it's not just the field trips for the elementary schools, but also getting our high school kids engaged with that new energy economy. So that's kind of my number 1 priority is that increased rigorous and relevant learning. To do that, I'm concerned about 2 things in common with my colleagues here. One is to make sure that we're retaining talented teachers and staff, and I know That involves salary, and we've done some work in that area. Do we need to do more? I'd like to make sure we aren't, what do we know about the competitive salaries? How are we doing? But I also really recognize that a lot of teachers are appreciating the professional learning opportunities that we're giving them. So I want to make sure we're giving them adequate learning opportunities, giving them enough time to do that work, to make themselves better and enjoy their jobs as much as they can. I also really like to make sure we're focused on the early learning, especially educators, to make sure we have adequate and as large as possible pre-K and early childhood learning. That work is so critical in this district. Finally, having served on some of these disciplinary committees, I'm really distressed about what is our alternative school situation for those, quote, 10% of the kids that cause 90% of the problems. If that's true, what are we doing in terms of in-school suspension? What supports are we offering these 10% of the troubled kids? And making sure that they have a good space to go to if we need to help them adjust behaviorally to the mainstream. And I don't really understand what our alternative school is doing or what that looks like. I need to learn more about it, but I also want to make sure it's fully funded, because I hate to take a kid who's done something wrong for the first time and they land in this place that isn't necessarily good for them. So I'd really like to, and that's related to your discipline question, I think, is what are we doing with the kids that are struggling? And I don't know if it's 10% or whatever, but it's this fairly small number of kids that are really having a hard time. How are we supporting them? So that's my third, and I think that's my 2 minutes, right?
Do you have a ranking for these
I
priorities?
think I gave them in the order
Oh,
of
in
importance.
the order. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Denson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For my first one, I would say, not a big surprise going down the line here, but literacy and some of the early competencies in mathematics, us continuing that push, especially in the early grades, especially in pre-K through second grade, where we know there's a lot of that gets established, and children can get kind of behind after they go past that point if they're not up to that level. And in that specifically, I would love for us to be able to explore if we could get back to, from what I understand, about a little over a decade ago, we were at where we would have parapros in every, assigned to every first grade class, just like they are in kindergarten and pre-K. And just at least exploring that idea of being able to have 2 full-time people assigned to each one of those classes, so that we have smaller ratios of students to the teachers there. And when it gets to the engagement with families and students outside of the classroom in school, I am concerned about losing some of that capacity we've built up over the last couple years with the Family and Community Engagement Office, and then knowing that was ESSER funded. Just seeing if there's ways for us to continue those positions and those programs moving forward with different funding sources. And combined in that, definitely some of the things that have already been talked about when it comes to like the disciplinary, those different, I would love for us to be finding some alternatives to alternative school. I think alternative school is something that's definitely needed in some situations, but it really seems that in some of those disciplinary hearings, we hit this wall where there's not a lot in between, that we have a lot of options there. And I know some of those things that we have explored have been very successful. I know there's that one program we have, I can't remember what it's called exactly, but where they kind of go through and do case management with the parent and the student. They have to buy into this. I'd love for us to be expanding out those kind of things. And my last one is equitable pay and benefits for CCSD staff, especially the support staff positions that unfortunately aren't getting some of the same, and a lot of it not because of us, but because of state determination, aren't getting the same kind of benefit packages, especially in retirement. I know that we're limited in ways that we can do that, but I want that to be something that's in our forefront, that when we are talking about pay and compensation, we definitely are talking about retention We're talking about recruitment. We're also talking about making sure we're doing equitable pay for those positions that sometimes are not appreciated as much as they should be. And I have to be honest, like, I don't know if I have a ranking between these three. They're all pretty important to me. So yeah, I don't think I can fairly say a 1, 2, 3, but.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Denson. Dr. Gant?
Let's see. All right. So I have three priorities with a couple of suggestions regarding how we might get there. One is related to teacher and classroom support. That's one priority. The second priority would fall under thriving students / equity. And then the third priority would be human resources and capital, investing more in human resources and capital. With the teacher / classroom support, one of the things specifically that I think our budget can accommodate and I would like to advocate for is more teaching, more support for teaching materials. I've seen a number of different what do you call them, like campaigns for like teaching materials, behavior support related items, PBIS related items, and I don't think that that is appropriate given our budget. I do think that teachers need to have, even if it starts off as a stipend, that may be something that we can get more information from principals or the teacher advisory board. But I've seen on a variety of different social media outlets and just from speaking with people that there is a need in that area that seems to be low-hanging fruit. Another area under the teacher / classroom support would be being sure that we are funding librarians. Because it is at the, that is the media center, that is really the center, in my opinion, outside of the classroom where knowledge can be gained and built upon. So that's under the teacher classroom support. Related to thriving students and equity, at one point we had paras in all of our early grade classrooms, and I know that is more of a long-term goal, but I think there is an option to perhaps maybe advocate more for paras or specialists at those earlier grades, even if it starts at particular schools based on what the need is. Also, just philosophically and where we're spending our money, I would love to see us move towards more inclusion for our students that are served through special education, so that they're not separated as much when it comes to getting their needs met. Also under thriving students / equity, echoing what people have said here, a strategic direction for discipline I think is critically needed. Just a quick look at our data dashboard, and I know most of us look at, probably a repeat of information, but so far in 2023, 2024, we've had 3,836 incidents. And the students with behavior incidents, however, is 1,699 so far. And that's across all schools, right? So that's not necessarily like one school or the other. But I think we can look historically at these past several years and even before the past several years to know that there's an element of our strategic plan that needs a little bit more fleshing out when it comes to strategic direction with discipline. We have behavior specialists, behavior interventionists, school social workers, school counselors, licensed psychologists, mental health providers, all in schools and all with very unique and critical roles. But at some point, if we have a strategic direction, then we know how we're going to address this problem and with who. Who is going to be responsible for addressing that problem from tier 1 all the way up. In other words, from prevention to intervention. And so I do think that that is something under that thriving students / equity that is critical. And then the last priority would be human resources and or human capital. Just back again, advocating for a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging officer. I do believe that across all of these areas, and even when you go back to our strategic plan, we see gaps that have been there really since the integration of schools. And I don't think that those things go away, necessarily during our tenure. There are ways in which diversity, equity, and inclusion, it sort of threads through the fabric of an organization. And so I do think that it is important, not for just one person to do that work, but for at least someone in the organization to have that expertise, and to be able to build capacity in their organization. And under human resources and capital as well, the last thing would be related to what Mr. Denson said, is having a sustainable, I would like to see us have a sustainable and ongoing increase for our classified and support staff. When you look at those two, what do you call them, like schedules of increases, they are very different, and obviously based on education and things like that. But I would like to see us not just look in the future for that. I know we can't accomplish that in one budget, but I really do want to see us look at how can we be sure that we are granting that increase so that those that support our students can do so, in a way where they can actually live in our community without stress as well. And I would like to see advocacy for that. We started it during the legislative breakfast, but I would like to see more serious and intentional advocacy with our state legislators, not just from board members, but from also district personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Gant. Sorry, I was reviewing. Were your priorities in that order that you?
They weren't in a specific rank order.
Do you?
I don't have an order for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We will move back up here to.
You want to go first?
No, you go first. All right, Dr. Evans.
My three are optimized talent, connected culture, and thriving students. I picked optimized talent because being a classroom teacher, one of the things that I had to learn really quickly was that if I don't care about my students, they're not going to care about what's going on in my room. And we don't really have a teacher shortage, we have a teacher crisis. I work in teacher ed now, and we just don't have the people that are coming into the profession that we did. Now, we have some folks who are coming from different places and different professions, but it's still not enough. And then if you want to project a little further, a lot of our administrators, our assistant principals and principals, are going to be leaving soon. They're going to be eligible for retirement. And again, we just don't have the people enrolled in the EDS and EDD courses, Ed Specialist and Doctorate of Education courses, to fill those roles. And so for me, I think one of the real strategic priorities is maintaining the workforce that we have by ensuring that we are one of the better paid counties, ensure that that our teachers get the professional development that they need, and that we also let them teach. Lots of times when I go and visit our schools and things like that, I don't see much of a difference between the schools here in Clark County that I go into and some of the other schools that I go to that are not charter schools. The purpose of the charter is for us to do some really dynamic and cool things. Now, we have certain people across the county that are doing dynamic and cool things. William Miller over at Cedar Shoals comes straight to my mind. I mean, just doing some fantastic work there with students, and a lot of those students were the students that were thrown away by the system. And he's making real impact and saving real lives. And so for me, optimized talent is where we're going to go, but we also need to allow them to be the professionals that I train them, work for our community. It's okay for us to have these fights. And I know that we just got our accreditation back, and I'm not saying that we need to put that at risk by any means necessary. But there are some things that are coming down that we could just say no. So again, optimized talent will lead to a connected culture, right? You know, we have talked a lot about equity, and we all see the disparities between our schools. I mean, they're there. And so, again, right, if we can get the teacher leaders that we need in our schools, that will begin to close those gaps. Because it starts there. It starts with that loving and caring teacher. And then last, thriving students. Once again, the teacher leader, right, is the person who makes an impact. Anytime I talk to my undergraduates or my graduate students who are teaching or about to go in field and things like that, I insist that they think about the things that they say. And I have them listen to Juicy by the great American philosopher Biggie Smalls, right? And his second line of the song that he introduced himself to us in our community was, "This goes out to all the teachers who told me I wouldn't amount to nothing." That's impact. That is, I mean, and this is a guy who's writing it, and he is 8 to 10 years removed from that. So for me, optimize talent, number one, and that will trickle into the others. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Wow, I don't want to go after that. I feel like that was a mic drop. Okay, let's see. So if you can start the time for me, and then I'll go. Okay. So I'm going to go in the order that I would rank these priorities in. The first is discipline. As many of my colleagues have gone before and said, discipline is a big issue. And that small percentage of students who are apparently causing the larger problems that we're seeing in our schools is disruptive not only to them and their learning experience, but to everyone that's in those buildings. So addressing that, I think, will sort of filter out and create a positive learning environment and help students stay connected to their education. So discipline is my first. And I would operationalize that by reviewing our restorative justice programming. I know that we were really headstrong when I first started on the board with trying to implement restorative justice programming throughout our entire district, and that mission has disappeared as far as I can tell, and I don't know where we are in our efforts for restorative programming. And I do see a need for it, and I believe that would help with our ISS, OSS, and alternative school issues. Let's see. So the second would be funding for professional development for our younger teachers, our less seasoned teachers, particularly as it pertains to disciplinary issues that may require screening for disabilities, rather than punitive measures. I had a conversation with the principal of Timothy Road Elementary School, and in that conversation, he conveyed that this is one of their biggest issues, is resorting to discipline with elementary-aged students whose issue is not that they're bad kids, but their issues are likely that they are not getting the help that they need. And some of that may be in special education, some of it may be with issues that are going on in their home. And if teachers can get trained in that professional development in those early years to be able to recognize those students and get them the help that they need, whether it is screening or mental health services, et cetera, then we can start to see some gains in the literacy rates and some of these things that we've been talking about for several years. So that would be my second priority. And then my third, I'm kind of split here, so I'm gonna, if I have time, I'm gonna mention two, but then I might rank one of them out. My third would be to see Georgia's living wage right now is $23.29. We have seen inflation go out of control, and over the last couple of years where we were having conversations about the living wage, wanting to increase salaries to $15. I remember 3 years ago, that's what we were talking about. Now we're talking about $23.29 just for somebody to survive in this country, and that's somebody without children. So this is what's happening with the folks that are living in our community. They can't find housing that they can afford, they can't afford their groceries, and we employ a lot of those individuals. So when we are talking about a sustainable community where everyone is thriving, we have to increase the salaries of our lowest paid workers to living wages of $23.29. I have an additional priority, and I know we were only given 3, but I'm gonna throw this one out there. And this one's not gonna be a popular one, and I struggle with whether I should even bring this up, but I'm going to. West Broad. What are we doing? What's our plan? And I know that we circle back and we just continue to have this struggle about where the money is gonna come from for West Broad. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to have a long-term goal conversation about investing or thinking about some creative way that we can start to use the budget and throw some money into a pot, a safe spot, so that we can do something with West Broad on our own without giving it away to somebody else. So I wonder if this budget conversation could start to creatively think about how we can do that. And I will piggyback off of Mark Evans' comment, Dr. Evans' comment, that we are a charter district. There was a fight for this to happen. I believe it was 2016, 2017 when this happened, and everybody was up in arms about whether or not we were gonna get the district status, the charter status, and we got the charter status, and we're not doing anything with it, as far as I can tell. We're not doing anything creative, as far as I can tell. And so if we can think about how we could possibly utilize that charter district status to do something really fun with West Broad, and that does include having budgetary conversations that may not result in something happening in FY25, but could help us think about how something could happen by 2030 so that we can stop having this West Broad conversation. So those are my 3+1 priorities. I'm still leading this discussion. Okay.
You're still in charge.
I'm still in charge. I was looking over at Dr. Gann, and I was like, are you ready? All right, so we've gone down the row, and I don't know if you all are comfortable with, are you at peace with what you've said, or would you like to go another 3-minute round?
I just want to change my number 1 to West Broad.
Are you at peace now, Ms. Davis? Okay. All right, so I think that we gave the district, Dr. Hooker, would you like to add any comments?
Sure, thank you. I can say, as superintendent of this district, that I am very pleased with the discussion tonight. I think this will lead us to do some great things, some innovative things. It's going to take us working together as a team to make this happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but if we make moves each year in our budget to make these things happen, hold us accountable, but we also have to look at, as Mr. Griner, if you looked at that PowerPoint slide, the initiatives that are coming from the state so far. We don't know what else they're going to drop in the next couple of days, but that shouldn't stop us from moving forward to doing what's best for our students. We've taken copious notes, looking forward to sharing those with you, but guys, we have to make it happen for our students. This is about our students. And I agree with you, some of the things is right in line what we have been talking about as a cabinet, as what we can do about wages, what we can do to ensure that we keep talent here, and to address the issues that many of our students come with, the trauma that they come with. We have to provide PL, our special ed, as you discussed. I am so proud of the team that we have in our special ed department now that are going beyond the call of duty to equip not only our teachers, but our administrators in understanding that we just don't put these students out or separate them and put them in small classrooms. So we're moving in the right direction. Look forward to meeting with you guys one-on-one, and let's make it happen. I'm so proud of you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. I feel like I just got like a tap on the shoulder from my parent.
We're proud of you
right?
too,
right? It just kind of feels that way. Aw. All right. Well, I think we are ready to wrap it up if everybody's at peace with where we're at. Okay, fantastic. So then we will move to item number 5, to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Motion made by Ms. Hull, seconded by Ms. Butts. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to have discussion on the motion?
Oh, no, we're not, no. We already voted.
So what?
All right, motion approved. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.